My daughter now, they call her as Aisha at the door where the hijab for Ibodo. Now only her face only now. I think no say now my daughter be this now. So it just they look me like mumu.
This is the story of Ese Rita Oruru, a 13-year-old girl who was abducted from her mother's shop in Yenagoa, Bayelsa State, and taken to Kano State, where her entire life was completely changed. Ese Rita Oruru is the third child of Mr. Charles Oruru and Mrs. Rose Oruru. The family of 6 hail from Oweru in Ugeli North Local Government Area, Delta State, but they reside in Opolo, Yenagoa Local Government Area in Bayelsa State, where Mrs. Rose sells food. Now, this man, Yunusa Dahiru, popularly known as Yellow, was one of Mrs. Rose Oruru's customers at her restaurant. He was a keke driver, and due to the nature of his job, his income was unsteady. Out of the kindness of her heart, Mrs. Rose Oruru would occasionally give free food to Yunusa Dahiru and some of her other customers from the northern region of Nigeria who also had unstable income. On the 12th of August 2015, Mrs. Rose was unavailable and had left the affairs of her restaurant to her 13-year-old daughter, Ese Oruru. When Mrs. Rose eventually returned, Ese was nowhere to be found. She went about looking for her daughter and asking people around if they had seen Ese, and eventually she met one Mohammed, popularly known as Daidi, who then told her that Yunusa had sold his keke and taken Ese to Kano State to convert her into Islam and marry her. His response was confusing and hard to believe, so Mrs. Rose Oruru went on to ask other Hausa men about Ese's whereabouts, and she met one Dankano who not only confirmed the first response she got from Daidi, but he also promised to take her to Kano State to get Ese back. Now, Dankano couldn't keep his promise of taking Mrs. Rose to Kano himself, but he made up for that by assigning a man named Rabi to accompany her to Kano, and they advised Ese's father, Mr. Charles, not to go with his wife. According to Ese's father, on the 14th of August 2015, Mrs. Rose Oruru and Rabi traveled to Tofa village in Kura local government area of Kano State, and they met the chief of the village. When they told the village chief of the purpose of their visit, the village chief was very mad at Rabi for bringing Ese's mother to Kano. The village chief told Mrs. Rose Oruru that Ese is no longer her child, as she has now converted to Islam and is now married, and he told them that Ese is now in the custody of the Emir of Kano, His Highness Muhammad Sanusi II, at the palace. Acting on the new information, Rabi and Mrs. Rose then went to the Emir's palace to see Ese, and they weren't given an audience as they were chased away by the youths at the palace entrance. The frustrated mother immediately broke down in tears, and the scene caught the attention of an elderly man close by. The elderly man then called the police, and a police officer came and took Ese's mother and Rabi to Kwani police station. Ese's mother made a written statement at the police station, after which police officers accompanied them back to the Emir's palace. Now, even with police officers present, they still weren't granted entry into the Emir's palace. So, from there, they went to the house of the Galadima of Kano. The Galadima of Kano said he does not know anything about the matter, so they left and went to visit the advisor to the Emir. Without mincing words, the advisor to the Emir told them that he did not want to be involved in the matter, so they left and went to see the secretary to the Emir. The secretary to the Emir told them that before Ese was taken to the Emir's palace, the chief of Tofa village got approval from Kora police station to proceed. The secretary to the Emir then told Ese's mother that Ese is now a Muslim convert, and that if Ese is brought to her, she would not be able to talk to her or touch her. Otherwise, either she or Ese would die. He then advised them to wait and see the Emir on the 17th of August 2015. So, they had no choice but to wait. And on Monday, August 17, 2015, Mrs. Rose Oruru, the chief of Tofa village and the DCO of Kwani police station, went to the Emir's palace to see the Emir. Ese came to the palace in a black SUV with 2 police escorts, and Yunusa was also present at the palace. That day, the Emir sat in council and was attending to a lot of cases from different people. And when it was time and Ese's case was called on, everyone who came for the case was allowed entry to see the Emir except Ese's mother, who had to wait outside. And when they were done, the DCO of Kwani police station came out to tell Ese's mother that the Emir told them to go to the Sharia court, and they objected to that. Since they didn't get the desired result after seeing the Emir, the Kwani police command then transferred the case to the state CID in Kano State. At the state CID, Ese's mother, Mrs. Rose, was told to go back to Bayelsa State and report the case to the Bayelsa State Police Command. So Ese's mother traveled back to Bayelsa State and made a report at Ekeki Police Station, and the Ekeki Police Command transferred the case to the State CID Yenagoa. The State CID Yenagoa made some arrests in Yenagoa, and on the 2nd of September 2015, Ese's father, Mr. Charles Oruru, 2 police officers from State CID Yenagoa, the chairman of the Hausa community in Yenagoa, KC Dahiru, and Dan Kano, the man who had first offered to take Ese's mother to Kano, all traveled to Kano State. First, they reported at the Kwani police station in Kano, after which they went to meet with the Emir of Kano again regarding Ese. The Emir of Kano distanced himself from the issue, stating that he had since written to the Kano State Sharia Commission to investigate Ese's case, and that he had also written to the Office of the Assistant Inspector General of Police Zone 1, ordering them to safely return the girl to her parents, but the matter is still hanging between Kano State Sharia Commission, Hisbah, and the police. And that was how they kept on going back and forth with the frustrated parents while their underage daughter remained in captivity. Now, let me paint a clearer picture for you. Ese was abducted on the 12th of August 2015. Her parents knew of her whereabouts that same day, and then 2 days later, on the 14th of August 2015, her mother traveled to Kano to see the Emir for Ese's release. First, she went alone, and the second time she went with police officers. Now, at this time, a lot of damage had probably not been done yet. The police would have just rescued the child, reunite her with her parents, and her life would probably go on as usual. But ladies and gentlemen, Ese remained in captivity for so long that her name was changed from Ese to Aisha. Her religion was changed from Christianity to Islam. Her accent changed completely, and she even started claiming that she wasn't abducted and she came on her own accord.
What is your name?
My name is Aisha Charles.
From where are you come Kano?
From Bayelsa State.
How old are you?
I am 17 years old.
Okay, what are you doing here in Kano now?
I am not doing anything, but I came here to be a Muslim and I will stay here.
Okay, Aisha, your parents tell us you are adopted from Bayelsa. Is it true?
No, I am not abducted by anybody.
Okay, tell us the truth.
I am not abducted by anybody.
Okay.
I come here on my own interest.
Okay.
Nobody forced me to be a Muslim.
Okay.
So,
that's all?
yes.
Okay, thank you, Aisha.
Just like Ese, many underage girls have in the past been abducted and taken to northern Nigeria, where they were converted and married off, and in many cases, all efforts to get the girls back proved abortive. The parents of victims are usually told that their daughters have converted, married, and are in the custody of local traditional rulers, and in some cases, the parents are faced with threats of violence and claims that their daughters are not minors. Ese's parents were about to face the same fate, but things turned around quickly on the 28th of February 2016 when Nigerian media company Punch raised awareness and sparked an overwhelming public outrage from Nigerians after they published this article. The Inspector General of Police Solomon Arase came under fire for his failure to rescue Ese, despite being aware of the incident for a long time. And this is what the Inspector General of Police had to say. I have just spoken with the Sunday Punch's editor. I explained to her about the delay. The police command in Yenagoa, Bayelsa State actually followed up the matter right from Kano State. The emir decided that he was going to mediate, but because of his trip to Mecca with the president, that was what caused the delay. But now that he is back, we are going to sort it out as quickly as possible. A Punch reporter asked him when Nigerians could expect the release of Ese, and the Inspector General of Police said, "Well, that is dependent on the intervention of the emir. We have agreed to resolve the matter. I cannot give a timeline." The reporter reacted to the answer with another question. "Sir, you mean the release is dependent on the emir and not the police?" And the Inspector General of Police replied, "I have not said anything like that, have I? I have told you I have discussed these things with the editor. You can ask her. You are starting a different line of interview. But what I am telling you is that we did not abandon the matter as being insinuated. We have been following it up. The issue will be resolved." Urhobo Monitoring and Development Group (UMDG) gave a 2-week ultimatum to the Kano State government and Emir of Kano to produce Ese Oruru. This was a statement released by the group's president, Mr. Kingsley Oberuraria. You can pause the video to read the statement. A civil society group, Kindling Hope Across Nations Initiative (CAN), organized a Bring Back Ese Oruru rally that was scheduled to be held on Monday, February 29, 2016. But before the rally day, the governor of Bayelsa State at the time, Mr. Ese Rita, got involved in the matter. The governor expressed concern that the rally may spiral into a tribal clash between Bayelsans and the Hausa community in the state. The governor requested that he be allowed to intervene on the matter, and in the presence of the CAN Executive Director, Mr. Kizito Anda, Governor Seraki Dixon called the governor of Kano State, Mr. Abdullahi Ganduje, and at the end of that discussion, the Kano State governor assured the Bayelsa State governor that Ese would be released very soon. So, because of the governor's intervention, the rally was called off by the Kindling Hope Across Nations Initiative (CAN). Several civil society groups got involved in the case as Nigerians boiled with indignation, and in just about 24 hours after the article was published by Punch, the Nigerian police force and Kano State traditional rulers, who had since acted like their hands were tied, immediately swung into action. Ese Oruru was rescued and handed over to the Kano State Police Command the very next day after that article was published, on Monday 29th of February 2016, 6 months after she was abducted. After she was rescued, Yunusa was arrested. Ese was flown to the capital city Abuja and she was taken to the police force headquarters. Ese's mother, Mrs. Rose Oruru, embarked on a road trip to Abuja in the company of officers from the Bayelsa State Police Command. Ese finally reunited with her mother on the 2nd of March 2016 at the police force headquarters in Abuja, and at this time, 14-year-old Ese was 5 months pregnant with Yunusa's child. A comprehensive medical examination was carried out on Ese at the police medical facility in Area 1 Garki, Abuja. After the medical examination, Ese's mom made arrangements for a road trip back to Yenagoa with her daughter, but the Inspector General of Police Solomon Arase was uncomfortable with the transport arrangements of Ese's mother, and he ordered that they be flown back to Yenagoa. Ese and her mother were flown back to Port Harcourt on Wednesday, 3rd of March 2016. Upon arrival at the Port Harcourt airport, Ese and her mother were driven from Port Harcourt airport to Yenagoa in the company of heavy police security. When they arrived in Yenagoa, Ese was taken to the officers' mess in the Bayelsa State Police Command headquarters, where she stayed until she gave birth to her child. Now, at the time Ese's abduction news broke out initially, there were reports that Yunusa had married Ese at the Emir's palace, and Ese's parents also disclosed how they tried to get the Emir of Kano to help them bring their daughter back to them, but all their efforts failed. Several Nigerians heaped criticism on the Emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi II, and following the backlash from members of the press and the general public, the Emir of Kano came out to absolve himself of all wrongdoing, and then he blamed the police for the delay in returning Ese to her parents. This was his statement. You can pause the video to read it. The former Minister of Education, Obi Ezekwesili, reached out to the Emir of Kano to get his side of the story, and the Emir sent her a letter that he had earlier written to Kano State Sharia Commission, directing the Sharia Commission to investigate Ese's case and send their findings back to him. The Emir also sent her the letter which he wrote to the Assistant Inspector General of Police to return Ese to AIG in charge of Bayelsa State Police Command, who will in turn return her to her parents. The Kano Emirate Council also released a statement informing the public that at no point did the Emir endorse Yunusa's action. At no point was Ese in the Emir's custody, and that the Emir ordered Ese to be returned to her parents. You can pause the video to read the statement by the Kano Emirate Council. All throughout the ordeal, the President of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, went completely silent regarding this incident, despite the popularity of the case at the time. With the general public now paying attention to Ese Oruru's case, Ese received enormous support and promises from the general public. The Bayelsa State government and the Delta State government joined the bandwagon and made some promises to Ese Oruru. The Bayelsa State government promised to take care of Ese until she delivered her baby. The Bayelsa State government also promised her a scholarship to complete her education after she delivered her baby, and the state government also promised her family and accommodation in the state capital Yenagoa. As I said earlier, the Oruru family hails from Delta State, so their state governor at the time, Ifeanyi Okowa, sent a delegation made up of top government officials to visit Ese Oruru in Yenagoa, Bayelsa State, and the governor also promised Ese a scholarship. In a typical Nigerian government fashion, most of those promises weren't fulfilled and were soon forgotten as time passed. As I said earlier, when Ese was rescued, she was already 5 months pregnant. At about 10:15 am on Thursday 26th of May 2016, Ese gave birth to a baby girl at the Bayelsa State Government House Clinic. The wife of Bayelsa State Governor Mrs. Rachel Dixon was present at the clinic to see Ese right after she gave birth. Now, 3 months after she gave birth, some people attempted to steal her baby at the police officer's mess in Yenagoa, and because of that, Ese's father had to fight for his family to leave the police officer's mess in Yenagoa. The Bayelsa State government then got a 2-bedroom flat at Okaka in Yenagoa for the family. But 1 year later, an issue came up there, and this time around, Ese's father, Mr. Charles, had to relocate his entire family back to their state of origin, Delta State. Mr. Charles stayed back in Bayelsa State and tried to get the Bayelsa State government to fulfill the scholarship promise they made to Ese, but all his efforts yielded no results. So Mr. Charles returned to Delta State to join his family, and then he wrote letters to his state governor at the time, Ifeanyi Okowa, reminding him of the scholarship he awarded Ese, and the governor replied that the government did not have provisions for such. The family soon realized that the fate of Ese's education was now in their hands. Ese's mother, Mrs. Rose Oruru, started hawking on the streets as she had abandoned her food business after they had to leave Bayelsa State. Eventually, they were able to get Ese back in school, and some well-meaning Nigerians also assisted Ese's parents with paying parts of her school fees. When Ese got back to school, a lot of people believed that it was the government that was paying for her education, but Ese's father granted an interview and disclosed that the government had since abandoned them. Now, back to Yunusa. After Ese was rescued, Yunusa got nationwide condemnation and the people called for his prosecution. Media company Punch, which initially brought the attention of the public to Ese's case, launched yet another campaign with the hashtag Justice for Ese. Murik, Muslim Rights Concern, also put out a statement calling for the prosecution of Yunusa and demanding that he be punished for his action. On the 8th of March 2016, Yunusa Dahiru was arraigned before the Federal High Court in Yenagoa on a 5-count charge bordering on abduction, child trafficking, illicit sex, sexual exploitation, and unlawful carnal knowledge. He was arraigned by a 3-man Nigerian police prosecution team led by Kenneth Dika from the force headquarters. Muslim Lawyers Association of Nigeria Mulan came to Yunusa's aid and gave him complete legal support. Over 100 Muslim lawyers, including several senior advocates of Nigeria, volunteered to freely represent Yunusa in court. Eventually, in the end, Yunusa was represented in court by a 5-man legal team that comprised Kayode Olaoshebikon, who was Yunusa's lead counsel, alongside Audu Bulama, Oche Alex, Yahaya Sherif, and Huwaila Mohammed. Yunusa's charges were read out to him in pidgin English on the day he was arraigned, and Yunusa pleaded not guilty to all the charges. Kayode Olaoshebikon, Yunusa's counsel, applied for bail for Yunusa, and the case was adjourned to March 14, 2016 for the hearing of the bail application. After the court session, Yunusa spoke to reporters in the court premises, and he admitted that he was responsible for Ese's pregnancy. He stated that they had been dating before they left for Kano, and that Ese's mother was aware of their relationship. His lawyer, Kayode Olaoshebikon, also spoke to newsmen, and he said that it was a case of elopement and not abduction. He claimed that Yunusa's real age is 18, and throughout the ordeal, there was no birth certificate or official document to ascertain Yunusa's real age. 1 week after Yunusa's bail hearing, on the 21st of March 2016, the first trial judge, Justice Ali Yangajiwa, granted him bail in the sum of 3 million naira with 2 sureties in the like sum. The judge stated that one of the sureties must be a traditional title holder and the other surety a civil servant of level 12 or above. Both sureties are to be from Bayelsa State and they must submit their 3-year tax clearance certificates, while the public servant must also submit his or her letter of first appointment and last promotion. Now, due to the nature of the case and the bail conditions, it was near impossible to perfect bail, as indigents of Bayelsa State refused to stand as a surety for Yunusa. Here is a comment by Yunusa's counsel regarding his bail at the time. You can pause the video and read it. So Yunusa's counsel filed a motion to review the bail conditions as they were unable to perfect bail. And luckily for them, Justice Ngajiwa had their plea and the bail conditions were eventually varied. This time around, any traditional ruler from any community in the country could stand as a surety, as opposed to the initial bail condition that stipulated that the traditional ruler must be from Bayelsa State. And also, for the other surety, this time around, a level 9 civil servant could stand as a surety, as opposed to the initial bail condition that stated that only a civil servant of level 12 or above could stand as a surety. After the bail conditions were relaxed by Justice Ngajiwa, the Muslim Lawyers Association of Nigeria Mulan Kano branch facilitated the bail conditions for Yunusa Dahiru. And on Friday, July 8, 2016, Yunusa Dahiru was finally able to perfect bail and he walked out of Okaka prison after spending 4 months behind bars. Now, for a fellow like Yunusa Dahiru who had committed such a heinous crime, you would think that he would be treated like he just had the cheese touch, but that was far from what happened. Yunusa received way more support than the average Nigerian who had committed no crime whatsoever. After he fulfilled his bail conditions, Yunusa was flown back to his hometown Tofa village in Kura local government area of Kano State in the company of a team of lawyers, and he got reunited with his family after 4 months away in prison. Yunusa received a triumphant entry as a return to his hometown, and many Nigerians from the southern region of the country couldn't wrap their heads around the fact that a criminal was being treated in such a manner. His father quickly got him a wife, and the former governor of Kano State, Senator Rabi Musa Kwankwaso, paid for Yunusa's wife dowry. The former governor of Kano State, Kwankwaso, also bought Yunusa a new keke. You remember, Yunusa sold off his keke when he first abducted Ese. The late Alhaji Aminu Dantata rebuilt Yunusa's family house, which was initially destroyed by rain. After he was granted bail, Yunusa failed to appear in court 4 consecutive times without any reason or explanation of his whereabouts and without any representative, hence breaking his bail agreement, so he was rearrested and remained in prison as the case tarried. The case dragged on endlessly in court as the first trial judge, Justice H.A. Ngajiwa, was facing corruption charges and was suspended, which led to stalling of the court proceedings for a long period of time. The trial eventually came to an end 4 years later on the 21st of May 2020. The final trial judge, Justice Jane Inyang, acquitted Yunusa on the first count charge of abduction, but he was convicted of the other 4 charges of child trafficking, illicit sex, sexual exploitation, and unlawful carnal knowledge. For count 2, Justice Jane Inyang sentenced Yunusa to 5 years in prison, and she sentenced Yunusa to 7 years each for counts 3, 4, and 5. The court ruled that the prison terms were to be served consecutively, meaning that he was to spend a total of 26 years in prison. After he was sentenced, Yunusa was in tears and he lamented that he was being treated that way because he is a Muslim. The court's ruling didn't sit well with some Nigerians from the northern region of the country, and they cried foul and called on relevant authorities to intervene. In a now deleted tweet, Bashir Ahmad, personal assistant on new media to the president Muhammadu Buhari, promised to reach out to powerful people who have the ability to do something about the court verdict. Bashir Ahmad's tweet was met with heavy criticism and insults, so he deleted the tweet and later came out to say that he wasn't aware of the facts when he made that comment. And looking at his stance on so many other previous issues, looking at the popularity of Ese's case at the time, and the fact that he replied in Hausa language to a post that was made in the English language, anyone with a functioning brain can see through his lie. Anyway, in 2022, Yunusa's lawyers approached a Port Harcourt division of the Court of Appeal to appeal the verdict of the Federal High Court in Bayelsa State. The late Alhaji Aminu Dantata sponsored Yunusa's appeal, and for the appeal, Yunusa was represented by Abdul Mohammed Rafindadi, a senior advocate of Nigeria, Yusuf Dankova, Huwaila Mohammed, Sunusi Musa, and Kayode Olaoshibikon. The Court of Appeal upheld the guilty verdicts that were meted out to Yunusa, but stated that the lower court erred by imposing sentences of 7 years each, which was above the maximum provided in such a case. So the appeal court ruled that Yunusa's sentence will run concurrently and not consecutively, meaning that instead of spending a total of 26 years in prison, Yunusa will only spend 7 years in prison. Yunusa started his prison sentence in a correctional facility in Bayelsa State, but he was later transferred to Kano State where he completed his prison sentence. While in prison, Yunusa got a secondary school education in the Correctional Facility Secondary School, and on the 24th of June 2023, 7 years after his initial arrest, Yunusa was finally released from prison. After serving his sentence, Yunusa was interviewed and he still maintains that he never abducted Ese and that Ese came to Kano alone on her own accord after getting his home address from a friend. You can pause the video to read some of the things that he said. Against all odds, 10 years after the sad incident, in October 2025, Ese Oruru eventually graduated from the University of Ilorin with a second-class upper division in education technology. In Nigeria, adults aren't even safe, let alone kids. This isn't a rare incident. There are numerous cases just like this that have happened in Nigeria, and in some of those cases, the child never got rescued. On the 16th of August 2016, Habiba Isiaku, a 14-year-old Christian girl, was abducted from her school by Jamilu Lawal. She was converted to Islam and was married off to Jamilu Lawal by the Emir of Katsina without her parents' consent. The Katsina Emirate Council collected 50,000 naira bride price on behalf of the girl's parents. The Emir of Katsina told the girl's father that he no longer has a relationship with his daughter as she has now converted to Islam and has been married. The girl's father, Tanko Isiaku, called out the Emir of Katsina publicly, and the father was harassed, threatened, and forced to put out a letter of apology. Despite several complaints to the police and other relevant authorities by the teenager's parents, they never got their daughter back. And there are many other similar heartbreaking cases like this. 14-year-old Patience Paul, 13-year-old Blessing Gopip, 13-year-old Progress Jacob, 16-year-old Linda Christopher. I can go on. Anyway, for more true crime stories, do click on the subscribe button.